There is power in personal stories. It connects us, it empowers us, and it holds us accountable. It creates understanding and expands our perspective. This is Big in the Community with Jonathan James at the Kalamazoo Promise, a podcast aimed to highlight local leaders, collaborators, and innovators in the greater Kalamazoo community. All right, welcome back to another episode of Big in the Community. I'm going to kick it off with a quote. Money is not the only commodity that is fun to give. We can give time, we can give expertise, we can give our love, or simply give a smile. What does that cost? The point is, none of us can ever run out of something worthwhile to give. And that's Steve Goodyear. So our guest today here from Kalamazoo Gospel Ministries, John Simpson, Chief Operations Officer. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, first, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I am the Chief Operating Officer at the Kalamazoo Gospel Ministries. I've been there for 10 years and actually just celebrated 10 years back in October. Would have never have guessed that I would be, first of all, at the Kalamazoo Gospel Ministries, but that I would be here for that long, but grateful. And I'm sure we'll probably dig into that story at some point.
Yeah, for sure. So you said 10 years in that role too.
No. So when I first started back in 2013, I was the director of programs. So we have a 1-year residential style program that we offer. And so I oversaw that program for the first 5 years. And then actually at the end of this month, it'll be 5 years in my role as the COO.
Okay. And then did you move to Kalamazoo or were you here before that?
Born and raised in Kalamazoo, Kalamazoo County. So I grew up in Schoolcraft, big farm town, and went through kindergarten all the way through high school, and then left for college, and then circled back. But I live in Kalamazoo Township now. Okay,
nice. So in your role now, how would you say you engage with the Kalamazoo community?
Yeah, so, the Kalamazoo Gospel Ministries, our mission, is what we originally were created as. Ministries just kind of is our overarching umbrella over Kalamazoo Gospel Mission, and Kalamazoo Deacons Conference is a part of the work that we do. And so we are really the major shelter provider in Kalamazoo County, and really even outside of Kalamazoo County when you go south and west of here. And so we could not do the work we do without partners. And so we engage with everything from housing resources that does housing to integrated services that helps people with their mental health and medical and all sorts of, other partners, including the Kalamazoo Promise, and, what services are available for the folks that are staying with us that would be eligible for those kind of things.
That's awesome. And I know I was looking at your mission statement, and one of the things that really stuck out to me was just the fact that you offer support to people of every faith, and if they have no faith as well. I really love that loving heart that you guys have. It doesn't matter who walks in the door. That's right. They're able to get help.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, the faith is the driver of what we do, right? So we're, faith founded, faith based, whatever word you want to use there. But we recognize that everyone's on their own journey. Yeah. And so it informs what we do, but it doesn't keep you from getting the help you need, because we want to see you reach your potential.
No, that's awesome. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Yeah. So how would you say you collaborate with other organizations like the Kalamazoo Promise or just other organizations in Kalamazoo?
Yeah. So I think, for us, it's finding out what the need is of the guest, and that's very individualized, right? Every journey, we had, last night, almost 325 men, women, and children staying with us. And so that's 325 individual journeys, reasons why they're here, reasons that are keeping them from achieving their potential or their dreams. And so as we learn those stories and as we come alongside of them on the journey, then we want to engage the resources. We're not a one-stop shop. We don't want to be a one-stop shop. We're not trying to fix everything. We're just trying to facilitate the collaboration needed to be able to help people achieve what they desire to achieve. Not even our program. It's not even like you need to follow these steps. It's what steps where do you want to go? And let's talk about what the steps are to get there. And then we reach out to the partners, or we invite the partners. We actually have a community space where partners can come in and meet with our mutual guest right on our campus. So they don't even have to travel to, housing resources or to integrated services. They actually come once a week. Disability Network, other partners come and meet with guests. And so we're really just facilitating those relationships. And then now that's between them and that provider. And if we can support them in some way, great. But we're really looking for that provider to do that. That frees us up to be able to help others on their journey to connect to their folks that they need to be able to achieve what they're looking for.
Wow. You said 325.
325. Yeah, that's coming down actually. So we were just within a month ago, we were 375, 380 a night. And so it again, based on weather, based on other circumstances, that number fluctuates.
It's amazing that you still use an individual approach with each person that comes in. Cause that has to be a tough thing to handle with like capacity or, everybody's story is different. Everybody's experience is unique. But to still say, no, we're going to take the time to work with you individually and not just give you like a blanket, like approach.
Yeah. So. Not all 325 are ready for that either though. Right. I mean, some are literally just looking, especially those that are, we have 3 levels of service. Our first level is emergency services. And those really are people that are looking for immediate help. I just want a safe place to sleep. I want my, immediate needs like food and hygiene and, those type of needs met. But I don't really want any help outside of that. I'm not ready for that. And so, all we can do is try to create relationship there, come alongside, let them know we care about them. We love them. Here's the services we could offer when you're ready. And so not all 325 of those are ready in this moment. But those that are, we're engaging. Our staff is engaging with them and helping them to get there. And those that aren't, we're just waiting for that moment when they have
drop the seed and wait and see what happens.
Yeah. We talk about, it's a moment of clarity, right? We all have that. Like all of a sudden, same things, the chaos subsides for a moment. And we have a moment of clarity. We want to be there to meet them at that moment of clarity and then offer to them resources that will help them to move forward.
It's awesome work that you're doing. I wish I had more adjectives to say.
Awesome's pretty good.
I'm just always like, that's awesome. That's amazing. It's like, it's just the work. I feel like it's, I want to say it's like underappreciated or just not celebrated enough. Because it's a work that a lot of times is unending. There isn't like, we get through steps A through B, or not A through B, but you go through the steps and then it's just like, okay, but it doesn't stop there. You might go back to the first step, but regardless, you guys are there no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you saying that, Jonathan, because it is hard for our staff. I mean, we have almost 90 staff that cover 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, there's not a holiday break. Right. There's not a, summer break. There's not a spring break. We're there providing, and there's a lot of secondary trauma. I mean, when you walk through other people's, difficulties with them, you take on those difficulties at the same time. And so the work that our frontline staff does it's mind blowing, honestly, that they keep coming back and keep doing that work because it's a calling, right? And that's why they do, because they know that's what they're supposed to do. And so they have exactly what they need to be able to do it in that moment, but it's hard.
Yeah. It's not exactly I don't know how you would say it, but it's not the first thing that some people would pick to do.
Yeah. It wasn't mine. That's for sure.
But still somehow you found a way to it and you thought like, this is where I'm supposed to be at.
Yeah.
This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
But that helps us transition to our next question. So, what's your story and who are you? and you can go back as far as you want.
Sure.
Or you could, some people go back to like elementary school where they were born, but you can pick it up wherever you want.
Yeah. So, in connecting with the work that I do, so coming out of high school, I had a, faith journey that began in junior high and through a bus ministry of a local church that came into my neighborhood and picked us up and took us to Awana. And I'm going to date myself here, but they, did a flannel graph of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and just knew that I needed that kind of relationship. And then coming out of high school, I felt actually called to become a pastor. And I went to Bible school for a couple of years, and then I had a moment when I ran from that and I decided, no, I don't want to do that, God. I want to do something different. And went to school to become a police officer. That didn't work out. And then got a job. I knew I needed to get a job. And I had gotten married pretty young, 21. And so I started a career at AT&T, and I was there for 18 years.
Wow.
And I kind of providential, I think, your quote about finances, I became very consumed with self. And it was about the life that I could live and pride outside image and status and a lot of those things. And it was back in 2012 that, I feel like the Lord really began to work on my heart about, he revealed I was a taker. It was all about what I could take. And then I needed to become a giver. I needed to give out what had been given to me. And so that's when the journey began. And I felt like I was going to be a pastor again, which technically I am through the Kalamazoo Gospel Ministries, but I felt like I was going to be in a church. And so I went to school to get a counseling degree and wanted to do something like discipleship or something in the helping ministries in a church, location. And I applied for a part-time position at the mission while I was going to school. And then that position wasn't the right one. And the Lord put me in that full-time director position. And, and then now here I am, 10 years later, and this is where I'm supposed to be. I mean, he just affirms regularly that I have to pour myself out every day into, those that are coming to us for help and into our staff. And so it's become less about image and finances and security and more about what I can do to help others. And that sounds way easier than what it is, but it's not. So it's messy at times.
Yeah. Now you mentioned like pouring out for other people, but what are ways that like you pour into yourself and try and like recharge for the next day and whatnot?
Yeah, that's good. So, my faith is a huge part of that. So church and church involvement is a big piece of who I am. And that's probably the biggest depositor in my life to be able to. I joke with the staff that there's a lot of times I drive out of the parking lot thinking I'm not coming back. Like I quit today. I'm not going to do it. And then, the Lord fills me up and I do some exercise and I do, I've got grandkids, and so they're a big deposit in my kids.
Grandkids?
You too.
You do not look that old.
And so we're also empty nesters because, and so my wife and I, just love spending time together. And so all of those collectively, are what make me drive back into the parking lot every day, knowing that I've been filled back up and I have something to give again the next day. But sometimes that's day by day, just in the difficulty of the work that happens. And I'm not even on the front line close like, our frontline staff is. And so it's even more important for them to do that.
No, I just had to ask that because like I saw a sermon not that long ago where they were talking about like the like this cup, this is you, and then you pour out, it empties, and then you go to church, it fills back up, then you pour it out again, you got to fill it back up again. But then it was talking about like if you're constantly in the Word, you're constantly like being on God's mission, that your cup overflows.
That's right. There you go.
And then you don't have to empty it, fill it back up, empty it. It's always like overflowing.
That's it.
So I just had to ask, like,
preaching now. So.
No, not that. But I just had to ask.
That's good.
So what motivated you to get to where you are now? I know you talked about a little bit, but is there anything like specific, maybe like a person, mentor, or something that happened?
Yeah, that's, I think that's a collective thing. I can think of several men that poured into me, that were mentors, that just were persistent, even though I think many of them saw, some of the decisions I was making, and not that they were horrible or awful, but they just were self-centered and not what they should be. They stuck with me and they continued to pour in, to me. I think too, in that 2012 timeframe, there was I needed some counseling. I needed some things I needed to process and work through in order to be able to transition from a security of 18 years at AT&T. I mean, I was, you're 12 years away from retirement at that point, and, I would have been 52 at that point, because I started so young. And so, transitioning from that, I needed wise counsel. And so being willing to open myself up and process through that and get counsel was super important in making sure that I was making an informed decision, and one that had been thought through, prayed through, sifted through with my wife and with other people that were important.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that couldn't have been easy. You had to step out on faith just to, like you said, you were comfortable. You were just, over halfway there, and then you could just coast and be retired.
Yeah.
I commend you for doing that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I know. But it wasn't when that's the right thing, right? I mean, when you understand your calling, then what is hard becomes. But easy is not the right word, but it becomes easier.
There's
right?
a relief to it. There's no stress.
Yeah, it's almost resisting it is worse than just staying where you're at. And so, giving into, that calling, giving into, the redirection of your priorities and your values and your purpose, brings great hope. It brings great peace, and the rest of it takes care of itself.
Okay. I hear you preaching now. So if you could do anything to transform Kalamazoo, and nothing would get in the way, not politics, money, anything, what would it be?
Yeah, the word that comes to mind for me is actual collaboration. We're siloed. I love my community. I love Kalamazoo. I've had plenty of opportunities to do things other places, and I've always felt called here. And so, but boy, we work against each other, and, my idea is a little bit better than your idea. So I'm going to start something similar, but it's different, and they're going to, we're not going to compete, but we really compete. And I wish we would, pull those fences down and be willing to just work together.
No, we always talk about blue ocean strategy and red. Have you ever heard of that?
Mm-mm.
So I'll get into it a little bit. It's basically, say we're in the ocean and there's a limited amount of resources, right? And we're all sharks. There's only so many fish, and we're trying to get the fish, trying to eat, trying to survive, but there's only so much that we can get. So we're basically fighting over what's available.
Yeah.
And blue ocean strategy, there's books on it. There's it's a whole thing. But it's basically that we're in a blue ocean where if we go and do something and we recreate something, or, it doesn't affect what's already going on. We're not fighting over the same resources. But the thing is, not everybody is able to do that. There are some people or nonprofits or organizations that are fighting over the resources, and it's kind of like they have to prove this way is going to work, and the resources should be for us. So, I mean, with the promise being what it is, we don't necessarily have to fight for resources. The resources that we have, it's just, it's provided to us. So, it's a blessing, but it's also we're going to come in, help, and see if we can do something different. If it changes things, cool. If it doesn't, then we won't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And that's something that is unique about Kalamazoo, that it's small enough that we can try things, but it's on its way to becoming bigger, that we can try something out. If it doesn't work, move on to something new. But I hear what you're saying about we are siloed. And it's tough. There's there are groups that are trying to do something and they've been doing it and it is working. But I don't know, I talk with my wife about this all the time. Like if we start something like to help students or something, and there's another group that's doing similar thing but a little different, it is better that there's more people being helped. I always think it's a weird kind of mindset to say like, oh, those students shouldn't get that, or these people shouldn't get that. I think the more people that are being helped, the better. But I think it is like it's a competitive mindset of, no, I'm doing it the best, so we should only do it my way.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a pride in that, but I also think that there's a stewardship aspect that is important to remember, right? Because if you're doing it and they're doing it, there's a building for both, and there's a cost for doing separate. When if there was more collaboration, there'd be less cost, better stewardship of the resources, available. And I love that we're all unique, but we all still need to sit at the same table. Yeah. And that's, I think that's that's the key for me, is that, not everyone agrees that, Kalamazoo Gospel Ministries is faith founded and that we're, that our faith informs what we do. But we still should sit at the table, and, someone that comes at it from a different aspect should still sit at the table, and we can still collectively talk about what we can do to help those that are underserved, underprivileged, undereducated, under, all the unders, and help them to not be that, and to live with purpose, and to live in the space that has been designed for them.
Yeah, I think it points to what's the purpose, not how are we going to do it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we get focused on that, or we get, I don't know, there's like a million different reasons why this stuff happens. And like, I hear bits and pieces of stories or whatnot. And I still try to go at it with an approach of like, well, we should, like you were saying, we should all still be at the table.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes there's stigmas that's just like, oh, it's faith-based. Like we don't mess with faith-based stuff, or it's, it could be LGBTQ community. Like whatever the group is, there are people who instantly think we're not touching that. We're not messing with that. We're not going to have those people at the table. Yeah. I do think it's important who's at the table, but not excluding certain people, or out of pride, or just trying to keep it to myself, or so I can move to the next position. I think there's a really tough like analysis of like, why is this happening?
Yeah. We almost silo other people rather than them siloing themselves because of, what our perception is of them. And so we're going to put them over here, and we're going to keep them on the outside. And so I think that damages, because there are amazing things happening in Kalamazoo. I mean, there's so much good. I mean, the numbers for our homeless population, our unhoused population is, higher than it should be for the size of our city. And that's because people know there are resources. They know there are good things that are happening, in Kalamazoo. So all of that conversation around collaboration isn't about, we don't collaborate at all, and we're the poorer for it. It's just like, if we could collaborate in a perfect world, we could collaborate perfectly all the time, right? And put down the pride. I love that word that you use, and humbly come to the table and work together. How much more could we do? It's great now, but how much greater could it be if we collaborated on a much higher level than what we are today?
Or even have a conversation as to why we're not.
No, that's too awkward. We don't want that, right? That's hard.
I mean, it almost feels passive aggressive.
Yeah,
like, but in an organization,
sure.
Like, how are you passive aggressive to a whole nother organization?
Yeah. Feels very junior high-ish,
yeah.
Right? Kind of everyone's clicking and talking and having these conversations, but no one's having a collective conversation.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to like,
good.
Dig into it, or, I did ask you, what would you do if it was anything? And then I was like, well, this happens, but it's
life.
It is something that like, it comes up a lot. It's come up on this podcast. It's come up like during all kinds of work that we've done. It's just like, well, why aren't they here? Or why, how do we get them to be involved? And it's just, I don't know. We could talk about that for a long time. But anyway, so what are some of your favorite things about Kalamazoo?
Ooh, some of my favorite things about Kalamazoo. I love that Kalamazoo is, it's big enough, right? I'm not a big city. Like, I love to visit big cities, but I could never live in a big city. But I love Kalamazoo has, I think, found kind of this perfect balance of, still feeling kind of hometownish, but also having a little bit bigger city. And, there's some great plans with the arena and some other things happening that, I know will help us to continue to grow in that way. But, I would say, I love that. And that there's a variety, of things to do. So, and since we're, empty nesters, I always try to sell my wife on that there's a deal on dinner tonight. She's like, what is it? And it's like, it's half off, because we used to have to pay for 4. Now we only have to pay for 2. So I don't think that really works anymore, but we love to go out and experience, new places and, just be out in the community. And so I think Kalamazoo has a great offering of places to kind of hang out, to eat, and to have a social life.
Nice. If the Kalamazoo Promise was available to you, how might have that changed things for you?
Yeah, it certainly, I had to pay for school going through. And so, that would have, and I had to work often to do that. And so that would have at least lifted a portion of that burden to be able to focus more on school, which I'm not naturally and educationally inclined. It's not, my favorite thing to do. I know it's important. And so I discipline myself in that way. But the Promise would have been helpful. And I think then just the support system too, of, people to help with questions and processes. And when you run into roadblocks to help with that, because I know you guys offer so many supportive services. It's not just about the finances, but the supportive services that go with that. And so I think that would have been a real help to me as I was going through.
Yeah. It's one of those things that people still don't know about, that there's, huge team or growing team that keeps getting bigger and changing based on what students need. Anyway, if you had a gold nugget of information that you would share with someone who'd like to do the same work as you, what would it be? These are big. I keep asking the big questions.
You are. So ask me the question again.
If you had a gold nugget of information,
yeah,
or just like one thing that you're like, I would tell somebody like, this is what you need to do, to do the same work as you.
Yeah,
what would that be?
Yeah, I'm learning that it's less about education. It's less about, there's training and all that needs to go. But to do, this type of work, it's really a passion for people. And it goes back to my earlier comment about, so many of us, and I still struggle with this, are takers. It's just about, my own progress, my own corporate ladder, my own big house, my own, whatever that dream is, but that's what I'm pursuing. Learning to be a giver that, I can help while I can pursue those things. Those things aren't naturally bad, but how can I bring other people with me in that? How can I enable and help others with? And so you have to be able to look at people and have compassion, not judgment. And that's, you have to ask yourself when you drive by somebody and you see someone with a sign that says, need money, God bless you, right? Which is what all those signs say. There's typically 2 responses. There's one of compassion and then there's one of judgment. Like, why don't you get a job? Why don't you, you're literally standing by a business that has a help wanted sign. Why aren't you applying for that job? And we don't need those kind of people at the Kalamazoo Gospel Ministries, right? We don't need those kind of people helping people. We need people that empathize and join the journey and say, either I've been there before. 30% of our staff has gone through our programming and now works for us, doing that because they want to give back what they've received. And so that compassion comes from there. Or, I've never been unhoused. There's been some tough seasons, but never, as tough as what the folks we serve have gone through. And so, but yeah, there's a compassion there because I recognize how easy it could be for me to get there. And how hard that is. And so wanting to help lift the burden is important. So I think just learning to grow, if I could give them anything, it's just in learning to grow in that compassion and then using that compassion to help people achieve whatever it is they desire to achieve.
I like that, the seeking to understand why, not being the person who's like, just go get a job. Like, why don't you, if I was you, I'd work 80 hours a week. I saw there's like a TikTok thing where this guy kept saying like, if I was you and I'd work 80 hours a week and then I make this much money and then I do this, but like, you understand, like they can't do that. Yeah. Not everybody can just say, I'm going to work 80 hours a week. I might not even be able to work. I might not be able to have somewhere to stay. Nobody's asking those questions of what is it that's keeping you from getting there. And I'm glad that you guys are doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. So much of it isn't even their choice either, right? Like that's what I'm learning is, my perception coming in was kind of like, these are self-inflicted. They're here because of their own choices. And so much of it is not. So much of it is generational, right? They're unhoused and at the mission because their parents were that and their parents' parents were that. And the trauma that was, placed upon them through, childhood experience and other things that they didn't sign up for. They didn't ask to happen to them. They didn't choose that. And so oftentimes when we're in that judgment mode, we're making some assumptions that oftentimes aren't true. Yeah. So there's some that have self-inflicted. Absolutely. We've all self-inflicted ourselves, but there is a large component where it's stuff that's been done to them and we need to come alongside, help them figure that out. We can't take it away, but we can give value to that experience and we can help that to then, be used as the motivation for them to be able to maybe help someone else with a similar issue or problem or concern or past experience. And then while it's still hard and tough, it at least is paying forward in other people's lives.
You said it. That, I like what you said there. Okay. Enough questions for you. Do you have any questions for me?
Do I have any questions for you? That's a great, thanks for that opportunity. Especially with some of those, right?
Yeah, with some tough questions.
What's your golden nugget? No. What would you say is the biggest misperception about the Kalamazoo Promise?
The biggest misperception. I mean, there's a lot of misperceptions. That's I think that's the first thing. But just assuming, like, I think it's the assumptions of, if you had this, why aren't you using it? But nobody's really saying, why aren't you using it? It's just like, they should be like, why there's no reason, there's no excuse why there's this many people graduating or there's this many people utilizing it. And understanding all the different things that go into why should I go get a post-secondary education? I mean, for some people it's, you don't need it. You don't think it's going to be valuable, or, if you're looking at, I want to be a counselor, I want to be like, I was looking at counseling psychology, and when I was looking at the average income for a counseling psychologist, I was like, it's not really worth it. Like, it's worth it to help people. Yeah. Like and I think that's a frustrating thing too. I'm getting off topic, but it's, I think sometimes like what we're passionate about and we want to do doesn't pan out for us to actually do it, to live the lifestyle that we want to. And I think that's where we have some disconnect of, this doesn't get me to where I want to go.
Yeah.
But I think there's lots of misconceptions. Like some people think we are KPS, we are separate. The biggest thing is just people will speak on it and not actually know the details about it.
Yeah.
Like we were we were at Western doing graduation photos, and I heard people walking by who were like, "What is this? What's the problem?" You know, like people who are from out of town, but they go to Western, and they're like, "Oh, I guess it's something where if you did something, you get this scholarship, and they pay for your housing." Like it's just random information that's just not, you know. And the problem is a lot of this is just word of mouth, so that ends up being just as true as us going and telling people what we actually do and what it covers and all that. So it's hard to nail down just one thing, but we get all kinds of things. One of the big ones now that we've been talking about is it doesn't cover HBCUs because they're not in Michigan. And HBCUs are amazing, but it's one of the core things was to keep students to build like an educated workforce in Michigan. Mm-hmm. And so that's where we're having some disconnect too, is, you know, it's not equitable for, you know, for Black students to be able to go, but our mission is to get them to be here. So it's tough, you know, how do you navigate through that? But a lot of people will say like, you're not letting my kids go to school, but it's not that we're not letting them. It's available for this, for here. And I think that's where some people get upset, or, you know, it's hard to have that conversation of, you know, you're holding my student back. Yeah. You're keeping them from this. But I mean, we should open up those conversations too. Is that going to make a difference in whether your student's going to go to school or not? Yeah. I'm getting way off topic now, but
I think it's interesting though, because, you know, we talk about judgment versus compassion. We're in the same work, right? Because you've got people that are assuming judgment, like, you know, it's not really improved graduation rates. They're, you know, you have this and you're not taking advantage of it. It's because you choose not to, you know, where if we look at it through a compassion lens, we say, well, why? Let's ask the why question. Let's get involved in the conversation and the doing of the work to help these young people take advantage of this opportunity. Find out what the roadblocks are, and let's help them overcome them, rather than just sitting here. You know, I mean, social media is so full of that, where everyone has an opinion, and it's based on nothing but their own thought life. And, you know, you just say what comes to your mind, and it's wreaking havoc, you know, in every.
Or people just do it on purpose. There's people who do that just to get people to argue on Facebook.
And hurt people, right? I mean, that's what happens. And so, and so I think every organization is battling that judgment versus compassion. You know, what lens are we looking at the problem that we're all dealing with, which is different for each organization, but what lens are we looking through, and how do we get more people away from judgment and into compassion and a desire to be a part of the solution, part of the solving of whatever issue we're working towards.
Yeah, it's worth the conversation. I think sometimes we're just quick to blame or like point fingers and say like this is what's wrong with it. I've had people who come up and say like it needs a GPA requirement or it needs this or that, because when I went to school,
classic.
And I don't know. I think the more people that are getting help, the better. Yeah. Like if I could, I'd just make it for everybody, and you could do whatever you want with it. Go to school wherever you want. Either way, it's going to help someone's career somewhere else anyway. But I also understand the reason for it being Michigan. Yeah. So yeah. Did I answer the question?
You did. You did. That's good.
Anything else? I'm scared.
You're scared? No, you did. You did great. No, I can't. Yeah, I can't think of it outside of what we are. I mean, we feel like we encompassed a lot in that one question, but yeah.
Okay. How can someone get involved in the work that you're doing now?
Yeah, so you can call us at our main number, 345-2974, and talk to Matt Furrow. He's our volunteer coordinator. We could not do the work we do without a host of volunteers, and we have businesses and churches and individuals that come to the tune of like 200 volunteers a month. and even core volunteers that are there hours every week. And there's a variety of things to be able to help with, everything from, making a meal and serving a meal to working with our children, mentoring people that are in our programs, maintenance, facility type work. There's just a lot of opportunity. And what I love about that is, some people are like, I don't love to engage other people that I don't know very well. And so you can do more project-based stuff. And then there's the people that love kind of going knee to knee with people. And there's, a lot of one-on-one stuff that we can connect you with. And so whatever it is you're looking for, call us and talk to Matt, and he will get you connected.
Nice. Well, you covered that. Yeah, you covered how to get involved, how to do it. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
I can't think of anything.
Okay.
Other than, let me talk about Kalamazoo Deacons Conference, or KDC. So KDC's been around for over 50 years. And it was 3 or 4 years ago that we collaborated together and began to merge and become one organization. That's how we became Kalamazoo Gospel Ministries from Kalamazoo Gospel Mission. And what I love about the work that KDC, the Deacons Conference, does is I call them our prevent defense. So they're uniquely located where they are, and their goal is really to help people that are already housed, maybe underemployed, maybe struggling, and they need clothing, they need household items, they need food, they need a gas card to get through to my paycheck on Friday, they need some bus tokens, they need help with ID or something like that. Then they do that in hopes that they wouldn't have to travel to 448 North Burdick, they wouldn't have to come to the mission. And so that helps to keep our numbers down, and also helps to keep people where they're at and have the support systems that they need. And so I'm so grateful for the work that Kenny and the KDC team do over there. It's not nearly as talked about, when you think of the Kalamazoo Gospel Mission, but such a critical work.
Awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your story. Yeah. Thank you for sharing the work that you're doing. People need to hear it. A lot of it's just word of mouth. So really appreciate you coming here and being part of the show.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.